Story 1. AskReddit still hasn't figured out that those people are not going to answer. If you actually care, they are discussing this in conservative circles, and the general vibe is, well, I don't like that. Story 2. Trump voters are often the subject of jokes about their reading abilities. While some find humor in this stereotype, it can come across as repetitive and lacks originality. It's important to approach political discussions with maturity and respect, rather than derogatory remarks. Frustration with American politics is common, but it's essential to engage in constructive conversations. Story 3. I don't know anyone who regrets or questions any of the administration's policies. The furthest they will go is to perform logical and verbal gymnastics to still land on, I agree with what he is doing. In only one instance, someone referred to it as an inconvenience to a very small number of people for the greater good. I don't know where you even start with someone like that. Story 4. My mother is a supporter of Donald Trump. My brother-in-law is an immigrant. When my niece asked her grandmother why she supports Trump's immigration policy, my mother lectured her 7-year-old granddaughter that she likes immigrants but doesn't want criminals to come here. Let's just say my niece is very confused, and my sister is quite upset about the conversation. Most of the Trump supporters I know are confused about why we say the things we do. They are in an information vacuum and haven't heard real news in a long time, just the opinions of news entertainment. Story 5. I voted for Trump. I'm just a regular guy and I'll answer. It genuinely frustrates me that immigrants who are going through the proper channels are getting deported. I hope that this is a mistake due to the size and scope of what they are trying to do. If it is happening on purpose, this is not what I voted for, and it is not what most Trump voters voted for. Does that answer the question? I can respond to any question looking for clarification as long as they are asked in good faith. I can't keep up with all this. Story 6. These individuals do not care unless they are targeted for something themselves. Story 7. Correct information is just one search away from ignorance. Barack Obama, 2009 to 2017, 8 years. Total deportations, removals, and returns approximately 5.3 million across 2 terms. First term, 2009 to 2012, approximately 3.2 million. Second term, 2013 to 2016, approximately 2.1 million. Annual average, approximately 385,000 to 432,000, peaking in 2013 at 432,228. Focus: prioritized deporting individuals with criminal convictions, with 91% of removals in 2015 having criminal records. He was often labeled deporter-in-chief by critics. Context: higher interior enforcement and formal removals compared to later administrations. Donald Trump, 2017 to 2021, 4 years. Total deportations, removals, returns, and expulsions approximately 2 to 3.13 million, with estimates varying by source. Removals alone, approximately 1.2 million. Total including returns and expulsions, approximately 2.1 million or up to 3.13 million, including expulsions. Annual average, approximately 299,000 to 347,250, peaking in 2019 at 347,250. Focus: broadened enforcement to include non-criminals, with only 41% of 2019 removals having criminal convictions. Expulsions began in 2020, leading to increased border turnaways. Context: deportations were lower than Obama's due to reduced state cooperation and the COVID-19 pandemic. Joe Biden, 2021 to 2025, 4 years. Total deportations, removals, returns, and expulsions approximately 4.4 to 4.7 million. Removals alone, approximately 649,000 to 820,000, formal deportations. Returns and expulsions, approximately 3 to 4 million, with around 3 million under Title 42 from 2020 to 2023. Annual average, approximately 174,000, removals, to approximately 1.1 million, including returns and expulsions. Peak, 271,000 removals in fiscal year 2024, the highest since 2014. Focus emphasized voluntary returns at the border, earning Biden the nickname Returner-in-Chief. After Title 42 ended in 2023, removals surged to 775,000 within a 12-month period. Deportations spanned over 170 countries. Context: record border crossings drove high return and expulsion numbers, but interior removals were lower than Obama's. Story 8. I didn't vote for Trump, and this is exactly why. Why target people who are trying to do everything the right way instead of focusing on real criminals? Shouldn't a law and order president respect legal immigration? Story 9. I did a cursory scroll and couldn't find an actual conservative answer. So here I am to present my unpopular opinion. Remember, the original poster did ask for Trump voters. In short, I don't like it. I am a conservative. I did vote for Trump. But that doesn't mean I'm not allowed to criticize him when he makes what I believe is a mistake. True immigrants who seek a better life should be praised, and their immigration encouraged. We should focus on deporting cartel-affiliated individuals who cross the border illegally with malicious intentions, such as smuggling drugs or engaging in human trafficking. Targeting innocent citizens doesn't do us any good unless they have a valid reason to be deported, such as supplying a foreign enemy with intelligence. We can't trade one problem for another, but we also can't leave the border open. Story 10. They are fascists. They will not regret it even when the death camps start being built here. Abusing marginalized groups is not a flaw, it is a characteristic. Story 11. They are fine with this. Here's why. The only thing of value that poor whites have is their whiteness. Until recently, that was enough to get and keep them at the top of the heap. That's no longer the case, and they are terrified. Along comes an opportunist who promises them they will matter again, and they cannot vote for him fast enough. President Johnson understood this perfectly when he said, "If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you." And here we are. Story 12. I had an interesting conversation with a supporter of former President Trump regarding the gentleman who was wrongly sent to El Salvador and that the Supreme Court instructed Trump to bring back. He stated that the individual was a member of the Mara Salvatrucha gang. I responded that those are accusations that haven't been proven. He said it didn't matter. I asked him about due process, but he didn't answer. I then said, "What if I accused you of being a member of the Mara Salvatrucha gang, and then you were detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement on an accusation, then deported without your due process?" His eyes went wide, and that's when I said, "You just realized what's happening, huh?" Story 13. Not American, but I wonder how many of those voting for the deportation of immigrants come from families of recent immigrants themselves. I'm referring to first-generation Americans whose parents or grandparents came to America as immigrants. This has always been something I've been curious about. I'm in Europe, where there have been many anti-immigration protests recently. It is ironic, considering my country once had the highest rate of mass immigration in the world. There are valid points on both sides of this argument, but there is no way this amount of power should be given to just one man, especially when that man lacks empathy. Story 14. And why is Immigration and Customs Enforcement only arresting seemingly docile individuals? They are targeting low-hanging fruit. When is Immigration and Customs Enforcement going to go to gang neighborhoods in New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago? We never hear of any shootouts, but they invite the media to cover a raid on a Mexican restaurant or an individual at a court hearing. If Immigration and Customs Enforcement is going after the gangs, then they should go where the gangs are. Don't show us three big individuals arresting a working man with no weapons. They claim they sent a gang member to El Salvador. What gang member? The guy cleaning tables at a Mexican restaurant? Instead of unsupported accusations, can you show us the evidence? Story 15. Bold of you to assume they care. Until it happens to them, then they have to perform even more elaborate mental gymnastics to blame it on anything but Trump. Story 16. Trump is a convicted criminal. His attorney general states that no one is above the law, and that she will prosecute anyone who leaks sensitive information to the media. Neither of these statements appears to be true. Apparently, there are people above the law. They are called Republicans. For the love of God and country, stop voting for Republicans. Story 17. Right-wing ideology is mocked and banned on Reddit. This is an echo chamber, so you won't receive a meaningful answer here. Story 18. This is an obvious answer. A majority of the votes feel bad, while a minority probably think it is unavoidable, fake, or believe everyone is secretly a criminal but cannot express this for various reasons. The smallest group may actually support it for any number of reasons. Nationalism, racism, money, hate, or whatever. The issue is that the majority of people who feel bad will convince themselves of anything to reconcile their feelings about the situation. Well, it's not that bad. It's only a few people. It could never be me. These are some of the worst excuses. Another minority of people who feel bad have experienced a shift in perspective, thinking, the government is bad and Republicans are really bad. It is frustrating because somehow, Republicans have convinced the younger generation that they represent counterculture. Yes, they are often religious, anti-abortion, and use derogatory terms to describe others. Terms like snowflake, woke, diversity, equity and inclusion, or immigrant, all varying expressions of dislike for someone I do not like. They are considered the counterculture. Meanwhile, our education system continues to decline. Green Day suddenly seems to have become liberal. Story 19. How do those people feel that they are nowhere close to deporting as many as they promised? To achieve 1 million, you need 2,700 each day, every day. They talked about 10 to 12 million. It is a significant failure, similar to the Build the Wall initiative. Story 20. Apparently, all he needed to run and win was not being Kamala Harris. I am not sidestepping the issue. I am acknowledging that they did not create a bill but chose at the last second to try and pass it. They refused to admit it was a crisis. I am not supporting Trump's decision to cancel it. I do not even know what was in the bill. However, his stopping it does not change the fact that it could have been passed had it been worked on much sooner. Story 21. They can return to their country and do it the proper way. Literally, every other country does this, but for some reason, America is not allowed to. Story 22. Is there room to discuss this without it turning ugly? I want to go back to the days of discourse. Republicans won't explain their positions. Is there an explanation? As a non-American, I'm very curious to understand. Story 23. Actual conservative. I am not okay with it, obviously. The issue occurring is the same problem that arises each time someone in power attempts to address something. They grossly overcorrect. The issue was mass illegal immigration. The solution was to bypass due process and start deporting indiscriminately. What I don't see people addressing is that the proper way, due process, was hindered by sheer numbers. I know someone personally who was at the border last year. They were instructed to let people enter or risk losing their jobs. 90% of them were against it but had families to care for. There were so many undocumented individuals entering so quickly. Due to the overwhelming number of cases, they were assigned court dates 7 years out to determine whether they could legally stay. Imagine coming here illegally and being told you could stay for up to 7 years before even being informed that you had to leave. Even if they were forced to leave, they would have lived here for 7 years at that point. Therefore, deporting them correctly would have been an impossible task. I don't agree with mass illegal immigration, but I also don't agree with the current situation. I am unsure what solution should be devised to manage it, but this is essentially an unprecedented scenario. So criticize me for answering the question as prompted. It seems conservatives aren't allowed to have a voice in this echo chamber. Story 24. I believe the issue with this question is that it does not differentiate between illegal immigrants and those who arrived legally. Are you asking about individuals who crossed the border illegally and then entered the system, or those who arrived legally, such as students through marriage or employer sponsorship who are attempting to become citizens? I am not a supporter of Donald Trump, but from the individuals I know who are, I would say they are pleased to see those who entered illegally deported. The belief is that anyone who came here illegally should not be here at all. Regarding individuals who have arrived legally and are striving for citizenship, the attitude among Trump supporters seems to be one of basic toleration, but no genuine affection. If they obtain citizenship, that is acceptable. However, the sentiment is that there is no real desire for them to be here. They are merely tolerated because they are following the proper channels. A significant aspect of the Make America Great Again movement is racial, but it is not solely about race. It also reflects xenophobia. White non-Americans are viewed as less problematic than non-whites, but they are still not regarded positively. The only group deemed truly great is white Americans born and raised. Story 25. Who here feels that we should not have borders? I believe I speak for all of us when I say we should welcome everyone to the United States. Story 26. I want him to deport those I project everything negative onto. Wait, is he also deporting my friends and people I know? Who could have seen this coming? I don't like this. Did you expect something like that? Story 27. Fascists do not care if immigrants are here legally or illegally. They just want them gone. Story 28. Those of us who comment without criticizing Trump often have our comments deleted. Good luck. Story 29. I wish people would stop asking questions like this. The individuals who voted for Donald Trump will never admit they made a mistake. They will engage in significant mental gymnastics to validate their opinion and dismiss anything you present to the contrary as false information. You are wasting your time if you expect a Trump voter to provide a genuine answer. Story 30. No one has regrets, but your party has a 20% approval rating. It will go lower if you continue with the negativity. Story 31. I don't think they realize what is happening because they believe whatever they see on Fox News and Newsmax, and they will never question it. Story 32. Did they come in legally? Obama deported 3 million undocumented immigrants without due process for each case. If you voted for Obama, how did you feel when that was happening during his presidency? Story 33. His entire foundation is built on lies, deceit, and theft. They only care about winning through cheating. Story 34. I am not in favor of deporting legal immigrants. That seems to be your question here about individuals going through the proper channels to obtain citizenship. However, if you mean people who broke the law by entering illegally, then no, it does not bother me at all to deport them. If they have ties to gangs and also entered illegally, it does not bother me to incarcerate them. Story 35. If I had to guess, they couldn't care less if they think this is moving them closer to a faithful recreation of Norman Rockwell's paintings of an America that never existed. Story 36. Asking this on Reddit is your first mistake. You will never get a real answer from a conservative on Reddit due to many fake accounts pretending to be conservatives. Go ask this on X to get real answers. Story 37. They are now saying that all undocumented individuals are technically criminals, so anything done to them is their fault, regardless of the severity or the rights that are stripped away. If their children are citizens and they have their rights taken away and are deported, it is considered the parents' fault, which completely absolves any other individual from being held accountable for any of their misdeeds. This reflects a dangerous mindset. It is essential to examine the historical quotes from the period when they began deporting marginalized groups. The language and logic being used are strikingly similar. When they finally realized it was impossible to deport everyone, they began placing individuals in camps. When that situation became unmanageable, they sought a final solution to the so-called problem. Story 38. I am a supporter of Trump. Yes, I voted for him because of immigration, among other reasons. However, the reports of citizens being deported are incredibly alarming, and I do not agree with it. In my opinion, anyone who is not a citizen and is convicted of a crime should be deported. Obtaining a visa or status in this country is a privilege, and an immigrant in jail is not contributing positively to the country. Regarding due process, it is completely un-American for people to be deported without their day in court. I criticized this when Obama did it, and I am expressing the same concern now. I know the term MAGA cult is popular on social media, but I do not agree with everything he does, and I wish he would speak less often. Story 39. Genuine answer from someone who voted for him. I think it's a double-edged sword. Yes, they came here illegally and are trying to make it right by becoming citizens, but because they came here illegally in the administration's eyes, that is too much. Personally, I am in the same boat, but I think if there were people in that situation, I would turn a blind eye because they are on the right path to citizenship. Story 40. I almost voted for Trump. I work with many immigrants in the trades. This subject is more complicated than people often realize. The reality is that people from all over the world come to America because there are more opportunities here than anywhere else. You can start and own a successful business in America, which is significantly harder in other parts of the world. The main reason for this is American wealth. Our currency is the world's reserve currency. It holds more value and buying power outside of the United States. Most Americans are unfortunately accustomed to their privileges and access to affordable goods and services. Immigrants come here from difficult and oppressive situations. Understanding what they have to lose, they often work harder and achieve more than many privileged Americans. They create businesses and restaurants driven by a strong work ethic. They perform jobs and create opportunities for themselves where many Americans are simply unwilling to do so. They then send the earnings back to their families in their home countries. Ultimately, this flow of U.S. currency and opportunities can strain our economy. However, the blame is mutual. Disengaged and privileged Americans fail to take advantage of our status as one of the wealthiest nations in the world. Immigrant families work and live together, pooling resources and creating real opportunities for themselves. Story 41. I am not one of the people you expect an answer from, but I am guessing the response from Team Trump is that there are no longer proper channels because the leader has changed the criteria. Story 42. There are approximately 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States. There is no solution for removing them without a quick process. A quick process is more prone to mistakes than a lengthy process. A lengthy process combined with lax policy has resulted in 11 million undocumented immigrants. The real question is how quickly you think the process should be and how many mistakes you are willing to accept. The quicker the process becomes, the more mistakes are likely to occur. If there were not 11 million undocumented immigrants in the United States, I would not support a quick process. There is no need for a quick process if the border is under control and there are low migrant numbers within the country. I would only support a lengthy process to reduce mistakes. Since we have allowed this issue to become too pervasive, making it impossible to handle without a quick process, I accept the quick process. However, this quick process still requires deportation orders. I do not support a quicker process where immigration enforcement can deport without deportation orders from a judge. That is the point at which the mistakes made are too excessive and no longer acceptable. Story 43. If they are illegal, they are illegal. My Hebrew teacher went back home for 2 weeks when his visa expired. Why are they here if it's not asylum? Ship them back. Story 44. MAGA stated, they care about law and order yet voted for a felon. They care about the Constitution yet support jailing federal judges. They care about free speech yet bar National Public Radio from entering the Pentagon. They care about the cost of living yet support the implementation of tariffs. They care about the prevention of World War III yet support threats to overtake Greenland or Canada. And those are just some examples. I could name 5 for each one if I had the time. Story 45. Anyone still supporting Trump is at this point just a fascist cultist. They are pathetic and loathsome individuals who dislike America. Story 46. I don't understand why they aren't upset about the constitutional crisis occurring. They claimed they need all those guns to prevent an authoritarian government. Story 47. Those people are enjoying it. That's the unfortunate thing. You think this is a trap, but those individuals couldn't be happier. Story 48. Nobody here is going to give a legitimate answer, but I will tell you what many Trump supporters at my work feel about it because they talk about it frequently. They really love it. They didn't want immigrants here regardless, especially those from diverse backgrounds. They would likely be fine deporting Puerto Ricans because they probably do not believe they are citizens. Now, when they start deporting white doctors and engineers from Europe, maybe they would give some mildly ambiguous answer, but for now, they are basking in racism. Oh, and this is at a hospital in a reasonably diverse city. So, the people who should be on the front line fighting for these individuals? No, it's a group of bigots who are very proud of their stance on all of this and think the country is doing great. Story 49. Where are these immigrants on the scale from light to dark skin tones? Story 50. They don't care. Immigrants, regardless of legal status, are blamed for all their problems. It's never their own actions. They are likely cheering. Story 51. This is the problem with politics. You have to be completely for or completely against any given issue. Cause and effect. Biden was free to allow a significant number of immigrants to enter the United States. So Trump is now permitted to deport all illegal immigrants. It seems like this was all planned, allowing politicians to act with impunity. I have no faith in either side. Both have been in power while the working class continues to get poorer, and the wealthy, including politicians, become richer. I know people will try to defend their party, but can you name one politician who has lost money while serving their term? They are earning millions on a public servant's salary. Story 52. Whoever voted for him has no interest in any form of immigration. However, the natives also present a challenge for them, and this seems rational in their perspective. Story 53. Go spend a few minutes on the conservative subreddit. They live in a completely different reality that is a fire hose of propaganda and misinformation. The leader can do no wrong, and everything is blamed on Biden, Hillary, or Obama. Story 54. Green card holders cannot be deported or have their status revoked unless they commit a crime or leave the country indefinitely. Even in the case of a crime, they have the right to a trial. There seems to be confusion about these claims. If they are not green card holders, then they are not attempting to achieve anything. Story 55. They do not care. Look at his poll numbers among Republicans. Observe the interviews in the New York Times with Trump voters. Story 56. Many conservatives claim they are okay with immigrants going through the proper process. While some may not genuinely mean it, I hope that enough are serious about it to feel concerned. Story 57. If they are legal American citizens, whether immigrants or not, they should remain in America and go through due process. If they are green card holders and have committed a crime, that should lead to discontinuing their application process, and deportation should be considered. If they came here illegally, that is already a crime. They do not belong in America, and they should be deported. If an immigrant has applied for asylum status and has been positively contributing to our society, then they should be allowed to stay. However, if they commit a crime, they will be deported. Deporting illegal immigrants was not my primary reason for voting for Donald Trump. But everything I mentioned above, except for the asylum status scenario, is already a part of U.S. immigration law. I did not vote for something that was not already law. I voted for the enforcement of existing law. If Trump's Department of Homeland Security begins deporting law-abiding green card holders, I will speak out against it. I do not want the country to be homogenized, nor do I want it to be inaccessible to people who contribute positively to our nation. However, those who have no respect for our country, its people, or its laws do not belong here simply because they are in trouble or we feel empathy. We are the land of opportunity, not the land of free handouts. Story 58. They are still not legal immigrants. They are welcome to come when they are given citizenship. Until then, they should leave. Story 59. It is a terrible, racist, and fascist country with poor healthcare and oligarchs. I am just waiting for the day when everyone stops wanting to come here. Go home. Story 60. I do not support Trump. However, I have family members who do, and I have posed this question to them. Their response is largely that while these individuals may be going through the proper channels now, they did not originally. It is unfortunate, but they took that risk when they came to the country illegally. So I guess they are expected to be okay with and accept it as a risk that was always present. When I tried to ask about those who did not enter illegally, I was told that was impossible and that it was only ever people who had entered illegally at some point, so that sin was always hanging over their heads. Story 61. Honestly, it seems to depend on their skin color. There is a blind eye and deaf ears when it comes to proper channels. Story 62. There are different factions within the Trump base, so it is not surprising. The technology entrepreneurs and wealthy elites have different goals than the white nationalists and Christian nationalists. Story 63. Are they doing this? I can apply for citizenship this year, but I am scared of what will happen by then. Story 64. My sister and mother are huge fans of Trump and Musk. My sister talks about how much good they are doing for the environment and the economy, using that as an excuse to support both of them. Story 65. First of all, you do not vote for someone for one specific reason. It is the overall vision that you vote for. Story 66. If they are going through the process and violating rules, such as supporting banned organizations or maintaining ties to foreign entities, remove them. If they are going through the process legally and respecting the values and people of the United States, leave them alone. I really don't think it's so hard. Story 67. Correct me if I'm wrong, but even if they are going through the proper channels to achieve citizenship, wouldn't they still be here illegally? If so, then technically he is fulfilling his promise, and I doubt any supporter would feel negatively towards him for doing as he promised. Story 68. I didn't vote for Trump, but I will admit that I am not a fan of people entering the country illegally. I support the idea of making the system easier and retroactively providing options to those already here. What is happening now is utter madness and amounts to nothing more than an ideological purge. Story 69. Do you think it's Trump doing this? No, it's Kristi Noem. She is unfit and unqualified for the position she holds. We all hope nothing significant happens because Noem will likely mishandle it as well. Story 70. I voted for him in 2016 because I thought it was a good idea to give an outsider a chance. I still regret that vote to this day. I have not voted for him since then, and if he runs again, I will not be voting for him. Story 71. Do they have $5 million for the golden visa? No. If people aren't coming with oligarch ambitions, then America doesn't need them. Story 72. His supporters will find any way to defend him. In their eyes, Trump can do nothing wrong, even if he does things they would call for Democrats to be punished for. I can critique even those I don't dislike, but it baffles me that his supporters are always on his side, even when he commits obvious wrongdoings. Story 73. I voted for him, but I do not agree with this unless the immigrant is committing illegal acts. Everyone should be welcome if they have gone through the proper channels. I will have to research this and see if it is true. Many have hounded President Trump with untruths for years. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.